The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
No. The script is all wrong. It's the defending champions playing at home. It's the other team that's supposed to choke. But what has happened in the last two games for the Boston Celtics defies logic. How many years did we see Michael Jordan and the Bulls fall behind only to find a way to pull the game out at the end with Jordan heroics? And what has happened to the Celtics in the last two shouldn't be happening. But you live by the three, you die by the three. And over the last two games, they are 25 for 100 on three-point shots. 100 three-pointers in two games, and it's cost them dearly, especially down the stretch. We'll get to what happened to Boston again last night. Also, Capitals getting ready to play Game 2. Interesting stuff from Tom Lavero in that he's comparing Spencer Carbery to Liam Neeson, who, as you remember, had a special set of skills and said when his daughter was taken overseas, I will find you and I will kill you. I don't know if it's going to go that far, but they got to find a way to win Game 2 tonight. Otherwise, the odds are really stacked against them. Teams seem to come back more in hockey playoffs than they do, certainly in the NBA and in baseball, but the percentage is not in their favor. Less than 14% chance of coming back after dropping the first two games of the series. So somewhat of a must-win for the Capitals tonight. We'll get to that. Also, interesting, later this hour, Chris Russo, who I've known for 40 years, one of the best people in the business, both on and off the air, as far as I'm concerned. You may have other feelings on that. It's all subjective, but I can tell you he's a really good person, and he's in the Radio Hall of Fame. He's had sort of a career resurgence, not that, he was in any way suffering when he was on Sirius XM, but now that he's a part of the Stephen A. Smith shouting show at least once a week, maybe a couple times a week, he's gotten some more fame. And he's close to my age, like a year younger than I am, and good for him. So he talked about being on David Letterman 37 times over the years, and he's got some good stories to tell, as he told them yesterday, and we'll replay that coming up at 9:45. Anyway, what do you say about the Celtics here? It's just, as Ben Golliver writes in the Post today, it's eerie what happened in the last two games. Game 1, Boston was up 75-55 midway through the third quarter, wound up losing. And then last night, they led 73-53, and in both games produced 16 points on 21 shots in the fourth quarter of Game 1, followed by 17 points on 24 shots in the final period of Game 2. He writes, Boston's deep devotion to the three-point shot was at the heart of both fourth quarter meltdowns. The Celtics missed 13 of 15 shots from deep in the final period of Game 1 and missed 9 of 11 down the stretch in Game 2. At least you could say that they shot 20 fewer three-pointers last night, but they hit only 10 of them. They hit 15 of them in Game 1. Darryl Royal, the great coach at the University of Texas, I believe at least one national championship, maybe a couple of them, said, you dance with the one that brung you. Like, you're not going to bench your starting quarterback in a big game because he got you that far. But in this case, you got to go to the rim. And actually, Boston had taken the lead in this game late with Jason Tatum running down the lane for a dunk. And then Knicks come back down the court. There's a foul. They go back up by 1. There's still plenty of time, and Boston's got a timeout. They don't call a timeout. And you wonder, well, what are they doing? Well, apparently they didn't want to have any defensive substitutions by the Knicks, even though they would have gotten the ball at half court. And Joe Mazzulla, the head coach, said, no, we were confident with the play that we had. The problem is that Tatum never got a shot off. He was worked into the corner, and Mikal Bridges blocked the shot. And, with plenty of time to get off a 2, which would have won the game, or a 3, which they seemed to be more comfortable shooting, they would have won that game. But instead, they go now to New York down 0-2. Staggering. Tim Legler on last night with Scott Van Pelt.
There's two things here. There's the melt on Boston's side, and that'll make talk radio in Boston a field day on Thursday. But there's the fight from New York. You hear me and Steve talk about it all the time. We're not joking when we say stay in the fight. New York did it twice in a row, and they won both fights. Now, it's not a knockout. You still got to win 2 more. But how does the fact that they were able to summon this twice, now going back to the Garden, how does this play out moving forward?
Well, listen, obviously they're going to feel pretty good going into that crowd on Saturday up 2-0. Nobody expected this. At best, you're hoping for a split.
Right.
You steal the first one, and you're probably almost certain you're thinking split. Let's go to Madison Square Garden and rock that place and take control of the series. Now, they've got a situation where they're telling themselves no matter what transpires over the first 36 minutes of the game, they are, to your point, never out of the fight, never out of the game, and actually in a lot of ways comfortable in that situation. Now, Jalen Brunson alluded to it. You can't keep dodging these, right? You got to be better.
No, it's not sustainable.
Right. But at the same time, they know Boston has something going on psychologically right now in these moments. You see the shooting percentages, 2 fourth quarters in a row. Inability to make a play at the end of the game from their best players. The Knicks feel like if we can just get you to that spot, we're going to handle it better because we're tougher and more confident. Particularly, I think, in their best player, Jalen Brunson, gives them a lot of confidence they can operate under that duress.
It's kind of an upside-down world, right? I mean, you always say, oh, yeah, well, they're experienced. This is a team that won the title last year. When they get in a crunch situation, they know how to handle it. No, Boston is just melting down. And you could say, well, the Knicks are playing with house money because they are not expected to beat the Celtics in this series, and they're playing looser down the end. But you just watch it unfold, and it's almost tough to watch. Like every time you see Boston come down the court, and these aren't just near misses; these are clanks. These missed threes, and this is the team that has been successful over the last 2 years shooting big volumes of three-point shots, but it flies in the face of the basketball that I learned back at the YMCA that you always work for the best percentage shot. But the game changed dramatically once they put in the three-pointer. But it wasn't, the crazy thing about it, the three-pointer has been around since 1979. Like the league is more than half of its existence, we've had the three-point shot in the NBA. But it really wasn't until maybe the last 10 years that it became so popular, and not everybody's got a Steph Curry. Yeah, I mean, they've got good three-point shooters on the Celtics for sure, but, you watch what happened with Curry in the Olympics last year. You knew he was getting the ball down the stretch, and you knew he was going to shoot the three, and you knew he was going to hit it. You're not getting that with Boston. And, again, they're a team that, kind of waltzed to the NBA championship last year. So, as they say, they got their backs up against the wall. This was the TNT crew last night as the game was televised on TNT. So it's Shaq and Barkley and Kenny and Ernie trying to assess where the Celtics are right now as they head to New York for Game 3 on Saturday.
My favorite part of that whole thing is looking at the clips. And you see Celtics shooting threes, and you see Knicks playing old school basketball, taking a high percentage shot, drawing and kicking, going to the hole. When you're down and when you're not the favorite, it's really no pressure on you. But they just kept playing, and the dumb Celtics just kept shooting up threes. Knicks getting the rebound, pulling it out. Brunson played great. Bridges played great. Cat played great. And they did the unexpected. They're up 2 now for the Knicks. Don't get comfortable. It's a must-win for Boston, but it's also a must-win for Knicks. If you want to put serious pressure on the champs, Game 3 is a must for the Knicks.
30-17 in the fourth quarter. So
let me take that for a second. He is 100% correct. I'm one of the few people in the world who have been in this situation twice.
I was just going to bring that up as a matter.
I said I've been in this situation twice. We played the Lakers when we were the number 1 seed in the West. We lost the first 2 games at home.
In a 5-game series.
And I remember telling the guys, I said, guys, all we got to do is get the first one. Because then the pressure switches back to them. But
don't let us win one.
But you got to win the third one.
Yeah.
Because then the pressure switches. But also with Kenny, when we won the first 2 games in Houston, I remember telling the guys, we cannot go back to Houston 2-2. We cannot go back to Houston 2-2. I said, we got to win Game 3, And in both of those instances, so what Shaq said, Game 3 is a must-win. It's going to sound stupid. Game 3 is a must-win for the Knicks. Because if they get back, because Game 4, because Boston's got a better team. They've been up 20, but I'm telling you, been in that situation twice. You got to win that third game. I still thought we were going to win the series when we were up, but when we lost Game 3, but it actually flips the mental picture.
What was it like on your end when you're at home and you lose the first two against his bunch?
Well, there was, strangely enough, there was a high level of confidence. Only because we can get up 20 on these guys. Like, we just have to sustain it. Like, and it was like, okay, what did they do to allow us to get up 20? Can we do that again? Everybody was like, yeah. And then what did we do to allow them to get back? And really what is, we got tight. We stopped shooting quickly on taking your first opportunity, your first open shot, and we try to get the great shot, and then all of a sudden they start closing in. Now the lead starts shrinking and you get nervous. That's human nature. But when you stay free-flowing, you're going to be okay. And you have to believe, you have to have a unbridled belief in yourself.
Did you feel like when you won Game 3, the series had turned?
We would say the same. We win Game 3. You know they're going to be tight Game 4 because we going back to H-Town.
But what's interesting, Game 1 was a nail biter. And then in Game 1 was a nail biter. Game 2, they were up like 25. Mm-hmm. And we say, and Paul Westphal says, guys, just start taking a bunch of threes for like 5 minutes. If not, it's funny you say that.
Since it was okay.
It was okay because we were down 25. And he says, guys, I'm going to give y'all 5 minutes because we got to get ready for Game 3. He said, just jack up a bunch of threes. You know, Marlon Ainge loved that. And before we know it, we had it down to 15, then we get it to 10, and he's right. They got tight. We shouldn't have won Game 2. That's what was crazy about it.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you did, and it's
but going back to what the Celtics mindset, if based off experience, would be we can get up 20 points and we can't beat these guys? No, that's impossible. So they know we can get up 20, and there's no way they're going to do that 3 times. And so you have to have, like I said, an unbridled belief in yourself, though, to think like that.
I think what could be a possible problem for the Celtics is they won the championship playing this way. So they are the champs. So this way works. Okay, we missed 40 the first game, we missed 20 this game, but we are the champs. And instead of saying, we're not shooting threes, we going to the basket, we getting rid of the penalty, we taking a high percentage shot. If I kick it out, then he can shoot the 3, no quick 3. But
I think Jaylen Brown did that. But I thought he came out with that mindset to take every level of shot.
You can't miss 23.
Shaq, the one thing that would scare me.
They wish it was only 20.
The one thing that was
45 and then 30.
Yes,
yeah.
The one thing that would scare me, they live and die by them threes. They had 2 awful games. But Jaylen Brown changed up a little bit and started going to the basket. But you never know when those threes going to click in. You never know.
Yeah, well, that's what they always say about shooters. Shooters need to keep shooting. And maybe Joe Mazzulla is saying that to his team. I know the 3 has killed us in these last 2 games, 25 for 100. But sooner or later, it's going to click. And this is what brought us here. You dance with the one who brung you. And if they can continue to shoot threes and continue to make threes as they did in the regular season, maybe they can win this series. Now, you remember 2 years ago, Boston was down 0-2 to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals. This was to get to the finals in 2023. And they lost to go down 0-3. And then it looked like Miami was going to choke it away. It went to Game 7. And Miami won Game 7, went to the finals, and then lost to, I believe it was the Lakers 2 years ago. No, not the Lakers. Who was it 2 years ago? Whatever it was, 2 years ago they lost and in the finals, but they got there by, being down, being at the point where it looked like they were going to choke away a 3-0 lead, which had never happened in NBA history before. It may never happen. It's been several 3-1 comebacks, but never 0-3. So I guess it's possible that the Celtics could lose in New York on Saturday, still win the series in 7, and Game 7 would be in Boston if it gets that far. But you got to be thinking, if you're a Celtics fan and if you're a Celtics player for that matter, it's getting really tight around here. And I don't know if they overcome that. We'll see. The worries about Oklahoma City, not too much to worry about there. They won by more than 40 last night against Denver, so that series is even at a game. But we got really a compelling Game 3. This is something that I'll be interested in watching, and I like the fact it's on at 3:30 in the afternoon instead of like 9 o'clock at night, where I would have a tough time staying up for it. All right, coming up, Capitals with your same thing. You don't want to go down 0-2 at home. So they're going to try and win tonight for sure. And if the adjustments that they hope they have made pan out, then they may have a chance to win the series. If they lose tonight, chances are very slim, less than 14% that they can come back and win. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So yesterday we played the entire Spencer Carbery postgame news conference from the Game 1 overtime loss. It lasted 2 minutes and 43 seconds. For a coach that sometimes gives 2-minute answers to individual questions, you could tell he was PO'd. He was not happy about it. The pull quote, as we like to say in the business, our entire team was not good. He had nothing good to say about that game. He was happy with Logan Thomas, the goalie, for sure on that. But other than that, there really wasn't much good to say about this game. The fact that they were outshot by 94 shot attempts, just 34 for the Caps, 14 shots on goal compared to 33 for the Capitals. Not good at all. And Tom Lavera's got a column today in the Post that may give you some hope here. He writes, the Capitals coach, Spencer Carbery, like Liam Neeson, has a particular set of skills to get the team back on the ice for Game 2. According to his colleagues, Carbery has the skills. He is a finalist for the Jack Adams Trophy for NHL Coach of the Year, and fellow coaches sing his praises, the job he has done with the Capitals this season, particularly after significant personnel changes in the offseason. Quote, he's turned them into a deep 4-line juggernaut, just wins hockey games, says Tampa coach John Cooper. They do everything right. There's no egos on the team, and he's found a way to coach a Hall of Fame superstar and coach players that are just starving to be in the lineup every night, and he's found a way to make it all work. Paul Maurice, who won the Stanley Cup last year with Florida, said Carbery got them to play very hard. Last year, he came in and changed the intensity level, and now it's systemized. If you can get your team to play hard, and then they're learning these systems, the more time they spend doing it, the faster they get. Even the opposing coach in this series, Carolina's Rod Brindamore, says his team has been impressed with Carbery's results. From day one, he put in a system that wins hockey games. And then he writes here at the end, this is the end of Tom's column, a second-round exit, despite, as Carbery referred to it, getting over the hump of getting out of the first round against Montreal after 5 failures to advance since they won the Cup in 2018, isn't going to cut it, despite Carolina actually being the favorite going into the series. It will leave the Cup further in the rearview mirror and become another missed opportunity to have franchise results match the presence of the greatest goal scorer in the history of the league, Alex Ovechkin. Washington needs Carbery to be Neeson and get the team back. I have a special set of skills. I will find you and I will kill you. Well, let's see. Let's find out what happens tonight. If you're looking for an upside from what happened in Game 1 and how they can respond in Game 2, this was center Nick Dowd with the media yesterday.
All in all, we didn't play a very good game, and we still had an opportunity to win that game. Once you get into under 10 minutes, we give up a goal, which it happens as playoffs. It's not a big deal. You can't dwell on that. And then going in overtime, it's really anybody's game at that point. And I think their whole thing is they're going to funnel a ton of pucks in the net, right? And eventually something bad will happen. I mean, just like you saw, the goal last night, the overtime goal, it's just a fluky one that goes in. But you give them enough opportunities, something weird is bound to happen, just like it did. So, but all in all, I mean, I don't think we played a very good game. So we'll obviously be looking to get back to what we do best tomorrow night.
What do you guys need to do differently to play the game more on your terms and dictate that?
Well, we need to put more pressure on their defensemen, right? Like if we put a lot of, as you saw early in the second, we put pressure on the defensemen. They started coughing up pucks, and then we had opportunities. We just didn't do enough of that, right? And it's not saying we're going to have 94 shot attempts like the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't think that's our game. But I think at the same point, like, we have to do a better job of stressing their defensemen in the offensive zone. We're all hockey players are liable to make the same mistakes under pressure. And I think last night we just didn't do a good enough job of making them make hurried plays. And then guys are going to turn pucks over, out-changing them, getting new guys on the ice. Like I said, it's a 7-game series. It's a long series, and we'll do a better job of doing that tomorrow night.
Well, we'll see if it's a 7-game series tomorrow night. Now, tonight for Game 2, one of the things that was talked about in the Montreal series was how physical it was. And that was seen as an advantage for the Caps. And maybe Game 1, not physical enough against Carolina. Here's a doubt on that.
Yeah, I think we need to be a little bit more physical, but I don't think that's something that you have to chase as well. Like, they're a good hockey team. They're going to find ways to, they're not. I don't think they're going to back down at this point in the year, right? Like, we're not going to. I don't think there's going to be teams that you can completely physically push out of a series just because you scare them. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen at this point for any team. But yeah, I mean, being physical again, like, that's the whole thing. Like, our opportunities came off of being right in their back pocket on a forecheck, causing their defenseman to make a hurried play, and then we turn a puck over, and then we get into our ozone structure. So, we let them off the hook a little bit last night.
We let them off the hook. To channel the late Dennis Green. We let them off the hook. We knew who they were, and we let them off the hook. So we'll see as they have their chance to respond tonight. Actually, Game 3 is not Saturday night. It's Saturday afternoon. I realize that's I'm sorry. No, it is. I was looking at 3. It was Game 3, so it is Saturday night. So I have a chance to watch the Celtics game in the afternoon and the Caps at night. See, when you get to be my age, those are the small victories that you shoot for. All right. When I was in San Antonio, there was a morning guy on the most popular station there, and he used to say, "On the police blotter," and he would tell you about, various crimes that took place in San Antonio the night before. On the sports police blotter, we got a couple of really bizarre stories from yesterday, starting with Byron Scott. Now, has there been a tinge of any kind of controversy with Byron Scott, who was part of the Showtime Lakers back in the 80s? He won, I think, 3 titles with them. 85, 87, 88. Very much respected player with them, part of the group with Worthy and Magic and Kareem, all those guys that won championships, the 5 championships, and he was a part of 3 of them. Also became a coach in the NBA, fairly well respected, had a good run, 1998 to 2016, even spent some time as the Lakers coach. This comes out of nowhere. Story surfacing yesterday that he has been sued for an alleged 1987 sexual assault. This is when he was 26 years old. And the lawsuit, which was first filed in California in December of 2022, so it's 2.5 years ago, and was amended earlier this month, accuses Scott of sexual battery and false imprisonment. Here's the guts of the story here. According to the complaint, Scott, who was 26 at the time, sexually assaulted a then 15-year-old victim in the janitor's closet of Campbell Hall High School in Los Angeles. Scott was a member of the Lakers at the time. It took place during the Lakers' off season. Lakers players were filming an instructional basketball video in the high school gym and were meeting with students, parents, and faculty members. This was as scrubbed up as you could possibly get. Oh, here are the great Lakers, and they're coming to this high school to film an instructional video at the school. And according to this complaint, Byron Scott took this girl, 15-year-old girl into a closet and sexually assaulted her. His attorney, Linda Baumeister, said, quote, "Our client is devastated by the complaint. Our client," meaning Byron Scott, "believed the plaintiff to be over 18 and had no idea she would claim otherwise until 35 years later. He respects girls and women, and the claims have blindsided him and his family." Now, the victim in this case is looking for a trial by jury and over $25,000 in damages, including the loss of earnings and attorney fees to be paid by Scott and Campbell Hall High. How it's gotten this far, I don't know. $25,000, you write a check for that, it would seem, as you're Byron Scott. Now, that doesn't excuse this in any way whatsoever. But let's think about this. Byron Scott, 26 years old, takes a 15-year-old girl into a broom closet, and he's not denying. The only thing he's denying in this is he's not even denying that she was 15 years old. He's denying that he knew she was 15 years old. He was thinking she was 18, but he knew, he had to know, he's at the high school. He knew that this was a high school student, and even if she were a senior, she would have just turned 18 if she was, in fact, 18. But according to this complaint, she was only 15 years old. And I'm not making any comparisons between Byron Scott and O.J. Simpson. I would just say this. There's a blanket line that I heard Tony Kornheiser say after all the O.J. trials and all that. He says, in the post-O.J. world, we don't know anybody. And I don't think whatever it is the story here, there's an admission that sex took place between Byron Scott, a fully grown man, 26 years old, and a high school student in her high school, in the closet, right? And, whether she was in there against her will, as they claim here, false imprisonment, sexual battery, whatever. Come on. You're an NBA star. What are you doing? What are you doing at that time? You're not some kid. You're 26 years old. I think at that time you'd been through 4 years of college. Amazing. Just an amazing story. And, from the other side of it, if they're looking for $25,000 in damages, how do you let it get to the point of this? Don't you try, or maybe they're just refusing to settle? I don't know. But he's not denying that there was sex between he and this woman back in 1987, or in this case, this girl back in 1987. Wow. And then this, Kevin Ware. Now, you really have to be a Washington football geek to remember Kevin Ware. I am, and I vaguely remember Kevin Ware, who was a tight end on Steve Spurrier's second team in 2003. He only played 6 games and had 3 catches in those games. So he didn't play very much. But I remember that Kevin Ware was a member of the team, and I think he played another year or 2 in the NFL. The latest on Kevin Ware is this. He has pleaded guilty in the April 2021 death of his girlfriend, whose body was burned and reduced to bones. He has been sentenced to 30 years in jail on murder and tampering with evidence charges, as he was slated to begin a jury trial on Friday, indicted in July of 2022 in the death of 29-year-old Taylor Pomaski, more than a year after her disappearance. Nobody knew where she was. And then skeletal remains were found in a ditch in December of 2021. Prosecutors say that they had an account of what happened, that he cut her throat with a knife in the shower and burned her body. He also took a picture of the body on fire. Wow. So here's what he was faced with if this thing had gone to trial, that he could have gotten anywhere from 15 years to life if he chose to proceed with the trial. The judge, Brian Warren, said, "I'm going to play football with you now." Terrible analogy, as he pressed Ware to make a decision. He said he needed more time to think about it. It took all of 20 minutes. Ware accepted the plea deal after discussing the offer with his attorneys. So the charges that he's, found pleaded guilty to will run concurrently with another 15-year sentence for drugs and weapons charges in Montgomery County. So he's 44 years old. It's a 30-year sentence. There is parole, so conceivably he could be out in a reasonable number of years. But my God. Allegedly cutting her throat with a knife and then burning the body and taking a picture of the bones. And, ironically, Kevin Ware was a part of the same team as Darrell Russell. You remember this story? This is, again, Spurrier's second year. Now, he had pretty much checked out at this point. Dan Snyder was, for all intents and purposes, the general manager of the team. Darrell Russell is a very interesting story. Athletically, he was a freak. 6'5", 320 pounds, ran a 4.8 at the combine. Big and fast. And he was a great player at USC. He was the second player taken in the 1997 NFL draft by the Oakland Raiders, and he was good for them. He was all-pro in 1998, 1999. But he had issues with drugs and was suspended for all of the 2002 season. And during that season, when he was suspended, he was accused of videotaping a rape. Those charges were later dropped, but again, there was an accusation of that. Because of the drug suspensions, because of the multiple drug suspensions, he was not only suspended for the entire 2002 season, but half of 2003. As soon as he was cleared to play by the NFL, well, guess who jumped into the front of the line and said, ooh, come here. And as I remember the story, Darrell Russell and his mother had dinner with Dan Snyder. Spurrier's not even there. And I guess Vinny Serrato was there, or if he wasn't there, who cared? I mean, he was Dan Snyder's toady at the time, and he was going to do what Dan wanted to do. And Dan Snyder decided that he was going to sign Darrell Russell because Dan felt he was always smarter than the other owners, that, they're too stupid to sign him. Yeah, he's been suspended for a year and a half and accused of a horrible crime. But, and again, at that time, the charges were pending. It wasn't like the charges had been dropped by the time he came here. And also on top of that, this dinner took place on a Tuesday. The Redskins were playing the Cowboys in Dallas on Sunday, and Steve Spurrier was told that Darrell Russell was going to start in that game. He hadn't been with the team all year. He gets signed on a Tuesday. Wednesday starts the practice for the Dallas Cowboys, and Spurrier is told, oh, yeah, there's going to be a new player for you at practice. He's going to start on Sunday. So they're asking Spurrier about this. Now, I personally like Spurrier a lot because I thought he was honest. Was he a good NFL coach? No, he was not. Was he in over his head with something he quickly lost interest in? Yes, indeed. He wanted to call his ball plays, and they were much better suited for college. But Spurrier said, when asked about Darrell Russell being added to the team with the suspicion of videotaping a rape hanging over him and coming off a year-and-a-half drug suspension, Spurrier famously said, well, not in jail, is he? And so that was the Darrell Russell case, who was on the same team with Kevin Ware, who is now going to serve a 30-year prison sentence for killing his girlfriend and burning the body. Two guys on that team. And look, Doc Walker has said this several times. Doc Walker, a Super Bowl champion and played on a second Super Bowl team here in Washington and has been a great broadcaster here for many years. He said every team needs a penitentiary guy, but not quite like this. And they have been quite careful here. I think that was, part of the formula here this past year, that they got some really good people in here. We didn't have a hint of any of this stuff, but this 2003 team had two players, and also I should add that Darrell Russell died a couple of years later in a car accident, had a very short life. But, he played here for, 8 games here? Played here 8 games, had like 3 tackles, didn't do much, and then I think it was another drug suspension that knocked him out permanently the next year. Snyder thought, and he was a great physical talent, but you've got to look at the makeup of the team. You got to look at the locker room. There's a lot of things you have to look at when you have those type of things. Coming up, more on the Celtics collapse last night, more on the Caps as they get ready for Game 2 tonight. And Ray Allen's got a really good story about his first encounter with Michael Jordan while he was wearing Jordan shoes. All that's still ahead. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So what to make of the Boston Celtics, the defending champion Boston Celtics, who never trailed in a series last year on their way to the title, are now stunningly down 2-0 to the New York Knicks, both times blowing 20-point second-half leads. And how they did it is incredible. 25 for 100 on threes over the last 2 games. Can they recover? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Game 3 is coming up on Saturday. Also, Capitals, a very important Game 2 tonight against the Carolina Hurricane. Their chance of coming back, not good. Not good if you lose the first 2 games of the series, particularly at home. But it's hockey. It's random. And they were in position to win the other night. They were up 1-0 with about 10 minutes to go. Had a bad turnover, gave up the tying goal, and then lost in overtime. So it's a slim margin. But the big thing is that Carolina had the puck in their zone all night and had 94 shots. That's not going to get it done. And we'll hear from Spencer Carbery about adjustments as he talked to the press yesterday after their workout. So let's get to the Celtics first and talk about what happened last night. It was almost the exact same thing that happened in Game 1, as Ben Golliver writes here in the Post about how similar it was. 75-55 lead midway through the third quarter in Game 1 on Tuesday night. Actually, Monday night, right? Monday night. And then in this game last night, up 20 points, 73-53, just about identical. The Celtics' 3-point heavy offense ran dry down the stretch of both games, producing just 16 points on 21 shots in the fourth quarter of Game 1, followed by 17 points on 24 shots in the final period of Game 2. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road, right, in the fourth quarter. And they would not give up the three-pointer. Now, I guess to their credit, they shot 60 of them in Game 1. They shot only 40 last night, but they made only 10 last night, only 15 in Game 1. That's pretty easy math. 25 of 100 over the 2 games. Celtics missed 13 of 15 shots in the final period of Game 1. They missed 9 of 11 down the stretch in Game 2. I mean, as you were watching this, it was just cringing. You couldn't believe what was going on. So what happens as they now head to New York for Game 3 on Saturday? After the game last night, Brian Windhorst on with Scott Van Pelt after he had done his locker room work.
I was in the Celtics locker room, and they don't really understand. They can't put their finger on exactly what happened. They're a little bit shell-shocked because these leads have just melted away from them. And honestly, down the stretch of this game, the Knicks were the more poised team. And when I went into the Knicks locker room, one of the things that they were talking about was just how comfortable they are in that position. Because they're like, it's okay. As long as we get it to within 5 points, within 5 minutes, we got the clutch player of the year. It's not the way you would normally think about it. Normally, you would be the underdog and you'd be down on the road and you'd be panicking. It's the inverse. And I'm not sure if that's going to continue, but it's a situation and a feeling that I've not seen before.
That's well framed. I have a hard time watching this Boston team play. And I saw a Russillo tweet to this point that you're thinking, this is a group that's won a title. And they look shook, and they look small, and they look uncertain in places where they should be the exact opposite of all those things. Now, they could go to New York on Saturday, then they could win, and the whole world looks different. But they better. I just wonder, based on watching these last 2 fourth quarters, where you stand on what you believe you'll see moving forward.
I'd like to come on here and be very strong and give you strong analysis and strong opinion on what's happening. I don't quite have a good feel for it. What I will say is the 2 Knicks wings, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, have outplayed the 2 $300 million Celtics wings in the fourth quarter of these 2 games. The other thing I'm going to tell you is at the end of the game, Jalen Brunson wants the ball and wants the situation. He is totally comfortable doing it. Jason Tatum is not. He's not comfortable doing it. Now, he had this incredible dunk. In fact, in the Knicks locker room, one of the things that the players were talking about, the Celtics ran the same play twice in a row in the last minute. And they were just so praising Mitchell Robinson, the way he defended it differently the second time than the first time, which, enabled the Knicks to win the game. I'm not being able to form a strong opinion on what's going on. I just know that the Knicks shouldn't have the better personnel and the more confidence, but they do. Saturday afternoon at the Garden is now for the Celtics season. The Celtics, I will say this, they've won a road playoff game in 11 straight series. In 6 of those series, they've won multiple road playoff games. They are, of this era, the greatest road playoff team that we have. So it is absolutely not over. But the chips are all down at the Garden on Saturday. And when I left the arena with everybody else, I left with Jalen Brunson. We were both heading for the exits. The Knicks were excited to get on the plane.
No, they should be. Nobody expected them to do what they did in Boston, especially after falling behind by 20 points in the second half of both games. And it's yes, Jalen Brunson was great down the stretch. Knicks were great down the stretch. And their defense was really good. But if you watched it, and this time I checked out of game one figuring it was over. Boston was going to win that up 20 points. What the hell? But I watched last night, and it wasn't just great Knick defense, though it was on that final possession. It was, Jason Tatum thinking he could do just what he'd done on the possession before, just go right down the lane and dunk. They were ready for it. They forced him into the corner. And Mikal Bridges blocked the shot. I mean, with plenty of time to get off the game-winning shot, they only needed a 2. They were down 1, 91-90. They never got a shot off. This is a team that lives by the 3, dive by the 3. You'd think that the plan would have been to go to a 3, but finally, at the end of the game, they realized, we're not hitting 3s. We only hit 10 of 40 during the game, so we're going to go back to the play we just had that scored a basket where Tatum was able to go down the lane and dunk. But the Knicks were well prepared for it. And yes, they should be excited going home. But I think the complexion, as we like to say, the complexion of the series will change if the Celtics win on Saturday and win big too, because then the Knicks have to start second guessing themselves. But if the Knicks go up 3-0. It's never happened in the NBA. We had 2 years ago where the Celtics did fall behind a 3-0 and they made it a 7-game series against Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals, but Miami won Game 7. So if it comes to that, if it gets to Game 7, it's in Boston. Who knows? Maybe they're the first to do it. But it is, as Windhorst says, it's the season for the Celtics coming up on Saturday. As for the Caps, not quite the season tonight, but it is pretty close to that. The percentages say if you go down 0-2, you don't win the series. For less than 14% chance of winning. As for what happened on Monday, was it Wednesday night, right? No, Tuesday night. Excuse me, Tuesday night. Spencer Carbery yesterday after practice on what happened and what they had expected to happen against Carolina in Game 1.
The only thing that I was caught surprised by was our ability to handle. I mean, we knew Carolina. I feel like this is a broken record, but they're the most predictable team in the National Hockey League out of all 32 teams. I think you could ask any coach in this league, is you know exactly what you're going to get. It's the easiest pre-scout. That's not meant disrespectfully. That's a compliment to what Rod and what they do, because everybody's on the same page with exactly what they do every single time they step on the ice, and it's very you know what's coming. So there's nothing that they did yesterday from a systematic standpoint that caught us surprise. They did it at a very high level, and the surprise or where you're hoping as a coach it doesn't look that way is our level, our ability to combat that, if that makes any sense. Our ability to, okay, we know what's coming, here's what we have to do, XYZ. XYZ didn't come to fruition. So then you're seeing what you saw yesterday from their standpoint and the way the game plays out.
So It's all about adjustments in the playoffs. You hear that all the time. What are they going to do from game 1 to game 2? This was Carbery on what they are planning to do tonight in game 2.
We can't defend for the amount of time that we defended last night and be under attack for as long as we were and expect to have success in this series. So we understand that Carolina and what they do, they're going to control play for significant portions of a game, okay? 95 shot attempts is a little high, so we're going to need to bring that down. Is it still going to be probably in the 60s, maybe 70s? Yeah, probably around there. I mean, that's around their average. So it's not, you're not going to eliminate what they do well. You just have to get it back to balancing out a little bit. And that's essentially, we didn't get nearly enough on their half, and they were in our end for way too long.
Yeah, most of the game it looked like, if you watched it. I mean, 33-14 on shots on goal, 94 shots. Yeah, that's got to change to a degree tonight. I mean, he's not saying they're going to dominate, time of possession and keeping it in there in the other end most of the night. No, but you can't let happen what happened in game 1, and he was truly angry about that, very angry about that. So 7 o'clock face-off tonight in game 2. PK Subban also on Dan's show yesterday, and we're in the teeth of the hockey playoffs, and we are seeing with Logan Thompson here a goalie standing on his head. I mean, the reason that they were in that game the other night against Carolina is because of the way that he played, and it was just peppered with shots all night long. 33 shots, he stopped 31 of them. Just couldn't stop the last one in overtime, and you can't see it if you're watching it in real time, and even the players on the ice are like, whoa, how did that sneak through? I mean, he's been great. So this was Subban, who's become a rising star at ESPN, often on PTI, and really excellent hockey analyst, played in the league for a while. And he discussed how important goaltending is, particularly at this time of the year.
Goaltending has become more and more important every year, and it's always been important. Playing hockey, it's the ultimate team sport, but we have an individual position that can really dictate whether you are a competitive team, a contending team, or you're not even close. And without a good goaltender, you're probably not getting too far in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. So when it comes to playoff times, we're seeing the best goaltenders, on the most competitive teams going at it. And, we're seeing that every night. Now, what we're also seeing is a lot of contact in the crease. A lot of that is due to because players are doing whatever they can to disrupt any groove that the goaltender might be in. Any rhythm that he might be in, you want to disrupt that by flash screens and getting physical in the crease. Well, sometimes that boils over. Sam Bennett's going into the crease. Yeah, I know he says Anthony Stolar's his buddy, but he's going in there. If he makes contact, I mean, no one's upset about that. And let's be real. If you hurt the number one goaltender, if a third or fourth line guy runs, and this is something that we got to talk about in hockey, is all it takes is one player to say, you know what? I'm going to go in there and, whatever happens, happens. But, you lose that player for a couple games. That's one thing. But losing your number one goaltender for the playoffs is another. And, I've been on that side, right? When we lost Carey Price against the Rangers in the conference final, that was the end of our run. So they're trying to protect the goaltenders the best that they can. But that play on the crease wasn't anything to gawk at. Wasn't anything too crazy.
What's it like to fight somebody and then he turns out to be your teammate at some point in your career?
Happens a lot in hockey. This is what makes our sport so special. And, Brian Burke says the hockey fraternity is the best fraternity in all of sports, and I believe him. But it starts for that simple reason. We are the only sport where you can fight a guy and the next day literally be sitting at the bar having a beer with him after playing a full 60 minutes and fighting next to him, right? So we're the only sport that does that. It's about honor. It's all about your teammates and team first, and the willingness to do anything for the team. That's what fighting really is in hockey.
When do you start fighting in hockey? At what age? Or is it acceptable?
Well, I mean, we oftentimes now, because we're in the world of social media, I get all these reels, and these tweets at me every day of like these little 9-year-old kids having brawls on the ice in different parts. And like, this just happens in hockey. It happens all the time. It happens in all sports. But it's funny to me when I see the little kids doing it in hockey, because they're watching everything on TV. But, I'll keep it real. People talk about our sport the time, and they don't talk about the respect in it. There's a lot of respect in it. And they talk about it a little bit, but not to the degree that they probably should. And the level of respect in the game of hockey I think it's unmatched in any other sport because of the physicality and the danger in our sport. And when you talk about fighting, there's such a respect in regards to fighting that if you do it the wrong way, you're going to have everybody, including your teammates, not happy with you. So, that's the respect that fighting sort of garners when you drop the gloves. We all know it's something that you have to be willing to do, and not everybody's willing to do it. So I think for kids, it's not in the forefront for them. We stress skill and talent because you got to entertain at the end of the day. This is sports entertainment. So the fighting part, is a part of the game, but the entertainment goes way up, right? The entertainment, though, has to meet the skill as well. So we got to have a balance of both. And I think we have that in the league. But fighting for me doesn't really start until the kids are about 14 or 15. Usually once you get to junior, and even then it's like a choice. If you don't want to fight, you don't have to.
That's PK Subban yesterday with Dan Patrick, part one. Part two, about the scoring in the playoffs, which is up this year, and the question is why?
I think it's the style of play, the way teams are built. Obviously, it's the way the game is policed as well with officiating. You can't hook and hold anymore. You can't clutch and grab. You can't cross-check. You can't do all those things as a defenseman, to impede players. Guys are also coming into the league way more skilled. When I came into the league, you knew that their third and fourth line probably weren't scoring any goals. They could run around and hit, but now you've got goal scorers and multi-point guys on the third and fourth line. I was just talking about this last night about Edmonton with, Corey Perry scoring that beautiful goal on that passing play with McDavid. But Corey Perry was a 50-goal scorer in the OHL. Like, Corey Perry was a 100-point guy in the OHL. Corey Perry is a former MVP, a Stanley Cup champion, playing on the fourth line and up and down their lineup. And when you look at the Detroit Red Wings back in the day, Kirk Maltby, Darren McCarthy, excuse me, I'm missing another name here, but they had Danny Cleary. They had a bunch of guys that played those roles, those third and fourth line roles when they got to the NHL, but were skilled players in junior hockey. So I think there's a lot more talent in the league, a lot more skill. There's way more parity in the game, which challenges teams. I think the star players have to do a lot more every night, which is more difficult to do. So, and there's more teams now, so you have more skilled players. So I think there's no off nights now. You could circle your, calendar and for the games that were point nights, even in the playoffs, you knew that you were playing against teams that were going to give up a lot. Now it's just difficult to do that. You got to play a disciplined game, and you got to have skilled players that can check both sides of the puck. And I think we're seeing the game at probably its highest point in a long time.
I'll let you start your team with Sid Crosby or Alex Ovechkin.
Sidney Crosby. First of all, I'll always take a Canadian player over any country. I am Canadian. This is our sport, folks. I know I work for ESPN in America, but hockey is our sport. So I'm always going to go with the Canadian. But, I'll say this about both Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. I mean, how lucky was the NHL to have two ambassadors like that over the past 2 decades? And we're hoping to have them around a lot longer, too. Neither of them is slowing down. And you can see the age, but the performance hasn't really dropped that much. And they're premier athletes, premier professionals, and most of all, premier people, the way they've represented the game. So to have either or of those guys would be a huge win. They're both champions. Like I said, great ambassadors, great teammates. But I'm going with Sidney Crosby. To me, he's the best all-around player in my generation. He's a winner. He's a champion. And once again, he's got that Canadian maple syrup running through his veins. That's the X Factor, Dan.
That's PK Subban yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. We're about to launch another WNBA season. The Mystics had an exhibition game yesterday, and they're going to open things up next week. Two stories here. One you're probably somewhat aware of. The other, really quite a statement from Paige Beckers, who was the number one pick of the draft this year after leading Connecticut to the national championship. She's going to play for the Dallas Wings. And last week, Caitlin Clark played an exhibition game on her college court, Iowa's Hawkeye Arena, and it was the Indiana Fever, the team she plays for, against the Brazilian national team. And viewership was excellent. It was 1.3 million people. They'll take that 100 times out of 100 on ESPN. The average viewership up 13% from last year's average for the WNBA, which she helped to bring up. It peaked at 1.6 million last week, and the game drew a sellout crowd of 15,000 at the arena. The average ticket price on the resale market, $440. This is women's basketball, exhibition women's basketball, and it's Paige Beckers. And this was a real hot-button topic last year, that all the attention that she created for the WNBA, and there was some real jealousy among other players, many of them African-American, who felt like this was not right, that she was getting all this praise and all this attention for what she was doing. But the fact of the matter is that the difference between a game that involves Caitlin Clark and a game that doesn't involve Caitlin Clark was dramatic. It was amazing. And she didn't play all that well at the beginning of the season, became a better and better player as the year went on, and now she's a certified star in the league. So, you can be jealous of what she's done, but there's no question what attention she has brought to the league. So I kind of wonder what Paige Beckers is trying to accomplish here when she says this. I guess she did a news conference as she's the number one pick of the Dallas Wings, and she talked about white privilege. And she said in the past that she has benefited from white privilege. White players like Caitlin Clark and herself receive an unfair amount of credit and attention. It's still an issue every single day. There's not equal coverage, she said to Time. Oh, it was Time Magazine where she did this interview. She says, there's white privilege every single day I see. I feel like I've worked extremely hard, blessed by God, but I do think there's more opportunities for me. Okay, maybe so. There have been many great black players who have gone through Connecticut and helped them win championships, including Maya Moore, who's in the discussion as the greatest player ever in women's basketball. Those things have happened. Did she get more opportunities to play because she's white? Maybe. Is she getting more attention because she's white? Perhaps. But also, I don't think that you want to necessarily minimize what Caitlin Clark did for the WNBA. And could it be that Paige Beckers maybe is trying to take a little pressure off herself? That maybe the other players, and she's maybe even hearing the grumbling, oh, yeah, here comes the new white hope. We had the great white hope last year. Well, that person actually did a lot for the WNBA. That's not to say that some of the rivalries, including the one that she has going back to college with Angel Reese, wasn't important. That's important too. But I don't really know what benefits Paige Beckers by saying that. I really don't. Other than, if there is some jealousy, which she sees both from her teammates and opponents, she can say, hey, I told Time Magazine that I've benefited from white privilege. Okay. And maybe I could say the same thing about myself, that there have been opportunities for me because I am white. I do know that many times when I've had to apply for a job, we've had to wait for other minorities to apply for the same job. And if it was judged, and it's very difficult, for this kind of thing where it's a subjective thing where the person doing the hiring has to like what you do. But if someone came along who was as qualified and the person doing the hiring liked just as much, that person would get the job. So anyway, that's kind of surprising to hear Paige Beckers say that publicly, and what will be the reaction if she succeeds or doesn't succeed. that could be also another thing. If she doesn't play very well at the beginning, as Caitlin Clark didn't do, will people say, oh, yeah, number one pick, got there because she's white. She did play very, very well. She played on a team that won the national championship, and she was a star. But she's now saying, yeah, I got there because of I was helped. Let's put it that way. I was helped by white privilege. That's going to do it for me. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.